Brexit crisis, British Parliament defying the British people, Boris Johnson sticking up for the people. That is basically what is going on in the United Kingdom. So the British Parliament has voted to strip powers, Brexit negotiating powers, away from the Prime Minister, who was voted on by the Conservative Party on a mantra of following through on the British people's demand of getting out of the European Union as soon as possible. And honestly, I would even say the British people have also said, get out, and if the European Union doesn't want to cooperate, then we won't cooperate as well. Because right now we're seeing a system where the Labour Party, which is the opposition, which has become so cowardly, so weak. I've lost all respect for Jeremy Corbyn, who's leader of the Labour Party. I used to respect him. I would have never voted for him if I was in England, but I respected him because he stood up for what he believes in. He's a jellyfish. He's a coward. He doesn't want to go to the people because he's afraid he could lose. And he wants to say, oh, he doesn't want no deal, this and that. Well, the British people are most likely going to vote for Boris Johnson and the Conservatives if there's an election. That's what the polls are saying. That's why Jeremy doesn't want an election. Because if there was an election, he could win and he could say, hey, there's no deal. But he doesn't want to go to an election. This is the first time in parliamentary democratic history where the opposition doesn't want an election. Opposition always wants election. Boris is giving it to him, and Jeremy's making some stupid excuse of, oh, well, we want to wait until no deal is a certainty. Well, then why don't you win the election and make sure that no deal is a certainty? You don't think you're going to win. That's why I say that the British people are demanding an end to this Brexit talk and getting out of the European Union come hell or high water. They're demanding it. They want an end to this crap now. They don't believe the globalists saying it'll push us over the cliff and everything. The only thing that's going to push the British economy and the global economy over a cliff is if the globalists do it themselves. Because they can do that. They can sell off all their assets. They can sell off all their stocks. They can plunge the economy. They've done it. They did it in the Great Depression. They can do it again just to, hurt people like Boris Johnson and more broadly hurt, the nationalists which keep getting elected all over the world. But here's what's happening in the UK now. Boris Johnson has lost his majority in Parliament. He is effectively running with a minority government. So there are more parties in opposition to him than there are for him. And on top of that, you've got a bunch of conservative rebels who keep voting against Boris Johnson. And Boris Johnson has thrown them out of the party. I hear people in the British media talking about Winston Churchill's grandfather, talking like as if you must not dare touch him because he's Winston Churchill's grandfather. You must not dare touch him. Winston Churchill is dead, okay? He was a great prime minister. God bless his soul. He's dead. Maggots are eating his body. He's gone. It's no more. Who is his grandson? What has his grandson ever done? Sir Nicholas? I've never heard of him. Have you ever heard of him? I'm sure many people in Britain have never even heard of him. Why should we give him special treatment and allow him to defy his leader and the prime minister just because he's Winston Churchill's grandson? So no, he defied the prime minister. He effectively voted against confidence in Boris Johnson. So Boris Johnson threw him out. He threw a bunch of them out. But he has a minority now. So Boris is now saying, we need an election. Because I think I can win this. And I'm going to make it so whereby the people in my party are people who are going to respect the British people by doing Brexit on the 31st of October. It was supposed to be done a long time ago. Theresa May kept delaying. We're going to do this on the 31st of October. And I would say he should choose conservatives who are pro-Brexit and who will not vote against the prime minister. That's what he should do. And he feels that he can do that and win it. But Jeremy, the leader of the opposition, Labour, says he doesn't want elections. And the only reason I can think of why he wouldn't want an election because he doesn't think he can win it. Don't give me any of this crap about, oh, well, election until we are certain that the Prime Minister is going to scrap no deal and legislation on no deal is going to be passed and it's going to get royal assent and all this stuff. No, you do that, Jeremy. You go in the election, you get votes, you win, and then you do it. You pass all of your anti-no deal, you're surrendering to the EU. Get all of that taken care of when you win. That's what the leader of opposition does. But he doesn't think he can win. And the reason he doesn't think he can win is because he knows what he's doing is wrong. He's defying the people of Britain. He's defying the people of Britain. Those howlers out there in London who you keep seeing on the news screaming, no, Brexit, and those howlers can howl. They're nothing. They're just London. They're a group of howlers. The rest of Britain wants this thing to be done now. They wanted it to be done months ago. Theresa wouldn't do it. Boris wants to do it. They're rewarding Boris with huge leads in the polls. And Boris wants this to get on. Boris wants an election. Boris wants to win, and he thinks he can win, and maybe he won't win. Why is Jeremy now saying we don't want an election, we're going to wait till this, that, and this and that? Because he doesn't think he can win. That's the problem. He doesn't think he can win. What he knows what he is doing is wrong. He knows what he is doing is dead wrong, and Boris has him cornered. Don't let anyone think that Boris is being put in a corner. Boris has Jeremy in a corner. And the more and every day, every second that Jeremy delays an election, the more cowardly, the more opportunistic, the more weak he looks. He's going to get, he could destroy the Labour Party. This is what I think is going to happen. I think there will most likely be an election in Britain soon. I think that, knock on wood, Boris wins it. Because I'm going to tell you right now, I'm already endorsing Boris. I've seen how he's been trying to keep his word. I was a bit skeptical of him. I wanted to give him a chance. I see that he's at least trying his best to get Brexit done. And on top of that, I like how he wants to put an end to austerity. He's spending money to rejuvenate the economy. I like all of that. He's not acting like a typical austerity-obsessed Tory. I like that. So I'll endorse Boris. And I think Nigel should cooperate. For the time being. I think they'll win. I think Labour will be hurt. I think the Liberal Democrats will either win a very strong third or they could even become opposition. The Scottish nationalists, I don't care about them. They'll win very big up in Scotland. Who cares about Scotland? You know one thing that I find about the Scottish nationalists? They say that they don't want to be taken out of the EU against their will. But the EU has dumped Scotland. The EU dumped Scotland. They dumped them. Scotland is almost like the clingy, obsessed boy trying to get with the cheerleader, the EU, the European Union, and the cheerleader doesn't want him. The cheerleader doesn't want him. The cheerleader has brought restraining order on him. The cheerleader has brought mace on him. The EU said that if Scotland breaks away from the UK, they will not be allowed to join the European Union. Now, I don't know, maybe that's changed now with all this Brexit, but that's what the EU said. If Scotland leaves the UK, then the EU is not welcoming Scotland in the EU by itself. That's what they said. That is what they said. That's how nasty the EU is. They're only concerned about the business people because the Bank of Scotland and all these people said, look, EU, don't allow Scotland to break away and come into the EU. So the EU dumped Scotland. So if the SNP had its way and they broke away from it with the UK, which I really couldn't care less about Scotland. If they want to break away, let them go. But if they go, they're on their own. They are completely on their own. So I don't know what these guys are talking about. But they're in their own world. They'll win everything and all that stuff. I I have faith that Boris will keep his word, and I'm fighting for Boris. The rebels can rebel all they want. He'll keep throwing them out. I think that's a very good thing. Get them all out. I don't care who's grandfather, who is Earl, this, Duke, that, the Lord of this, and blah, blah, blah. You know, I'm North American. You know, I'm Canadian. We don't care about that stuff here. We don't care if you're the grandson of Jesus Christ. If you are not doing what you're supposed to be doing, throw you out. You know, the England, they care about titles and nobility and rank and family member. Those days are over. Boris Johnson doesn't give a fig about that. Doesn't care if you're the grandfather, grandson of Queen Victoria, William the Conqueror. Who cares about the Duke of this, Duchess of that? Who cares? Y'all don't have no power anyway. So that's what I think is going to happen. Now, what I think should happen is this. Boris Johnson should order the Queen, and he can order her, to refuse royal assent on all of these Brexit things. Refuse it. And she has to accept it, because if the Queen appears to be disobeying the Prime Minister, it'll state very clearly that she has a political bent, and that could be the end of her entire family. That could actually happen. So refuse it. Let it go through the Lords. Let's vote on another election. Let's give Jeremy another chance to show that he's not a chicken. And then let's get on with it. You know, because once there's an election, all those bills get thrown out. And then let's get a majority, and then you take back control of Brexit. But you make sure that when this bill, which takes control away from Boris on negotiating Brexit, it takes control from when it reaches the Queen's desk, you tell her, don't sign that. Don't sign it. And if you do sign it, we're going to withhold money that you rely on to be Queen. We're going to take away Buckingham Palace. We're going to take away Windsor Castle. We'll take away all of that. You can go live in an apartment somewhere. You know? Go live in a homeless shelter for all we can. He can do that too. Oh yeah, you can. He can. And if the opposition stop him from doing that, well, it'll just show, especially since they're Labour, it'll show that Jeremy's full of shit, because he has once advocated the end of the monarchy. So that's the thing. But the Queen is sensible. She's never really defied a prime minister before. So if he says don't give royal assent, she'll do it. But that's what I think needs to happen. But Boris shouldn't put up with this impertinence. He's the prime minister. Make sure what you need to do is to get an election. Play around with Jeremy. Let him think that you are cooperating with them and say, okay, we'll give you control of Brexit. Don't you worry about anything. It'll get royal assent, everything. It'll go through the House of Lords. Monday, let's vote. Let's get it. Give us hey, think of it as you could have a chance to take power away from me, Jeremy. Let him, just butter him up a bit. Butter him up. And when he votes for an election, you say to him, oh, and by the way, I'm going to call the Queen and I'm going to tell her, do not give these bills royal assent. We're going to get out of EU on the 31st of October, come hell or high water. There's not a damn thing you can do about it. Let's meet you at the ballot box and we'll see what the British people have to say. And if he wins a majority, that's it. We can tell the British people want to get out of the EU on 31st of October, no matter what. So that's what I think should happen. This is the Arana Nation.